You don't have a paper qualification. I don't have a university degree, therefore I cannot be great. Those are self-limiting beliefs, right? And Shoshin is at a state of mind whereby you are willing to put all those aside and learn as if you are learning for the first time. Even though you are very good, even though it's an area that you're an expert in, there's always that last 10%, right? So if you are in a state of Shoshin, then you will benefit a lot from what I'm going to share with you today and tomorrow. Are we okay with that? Yeah. I have the opportunity to meet some amazing people in my life, and I found that the more successful they are, the more humble they are. You know, it's always those who know very little that they go around believing that they have known everything, and sadly they stay at that level because they're so anxious to talk about what they know. But it's the quiet one that observe, that is in this state, that they always pick up the last 20%. So I'm very hungry, especially in EO we have something called Thirst for Learning. I do public speaking to big audiences over the years. But each time EO has a speaker that come to my chapter, my Malaysia, and want to talk about public speaking, even though he's half my age, I will always be the first to sign up because I'm looking for the extra 1%. Is there something he will share with me that I missed out in my last 40 years of learning how to do public speaking? So that is the state of Shoshin, right? So we'll all be in the state of Shoshin. So the ground rules for today and tomorrow, and this is very important. When you have a meeting in your own department or division, don't assume that everybody knows what the meeting is about and what are the ground rules. So when you introduce ground rules, you see, we are trying to build a culture in the company, right? So Caroline has shared with me the values, the core values of the company. But the core values are academic. How do we take the core values and internalize it into the company? How do we behave it? The only way to behave it is to allow it to come out in every area. And the best area is that before we start a meeting, we set some ground rules. And over time, those ground rules become part of our core values, right? And that is very important. The way to implement a culture in the company is to practice it. And you practice it in all levels of day-to-day life, right? So first rule is Shoshin. Not only this weekend, when you go back to your office, when you have your division meeting, when you have a meeting with a customer, imagine a customer want to talk to you, and the customer want to, customers like to show off sometimes. They want to show off that they know a bit, right? When they talk to you and they're trying to show off that they know a bit, if you're not in a state of Shoshin, you will not listen to him. You're brushing aside, boring, I know what he's talking about, right? But if you're in a state of Shoshin, your mannerism will be very different. Your body language is different. Now, I've been a trainer for a long time. I get trained to be a trainer. When I look at all of you sitting down, I know who is receiving me, who is objecting me. The moment I walk into the room, I scan the room, I can tell by your body language how you will perform today. Right? That's what I'm trained to do. Right? So we read all that signals from the beginning, in the middle of our training, at the end of our training. So what I'm going to do today, right now, is a starting of building a culture in the company. The second one is to be fully present. To be fully present. This is one of the most powerful and most difficult things to do. To be fully present, to be in the moment, is very, very difficult, especially when we have so many things going on in our head. So what does it mean to be fully present? What does it mean to be fully present? To be fully present means 1/3 of it is to be physically in the room. Like all of you are amazing, right? At 9 o'clock sharp, all of you are in the room. So now this is something, don't take it for granted. Not many companies have this kind of commitment and discipline. People come in late. When we say we start at 9 o'clock, they take coffee at 9 o'clock. They go to the toilet at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock means we start. If you want to have coffee and go to the toilet, do at 8:50, right? So to be physically present is 1/3 of it. The second 1/3 is to be mentally present. Meaning that when you come into the room, you put aside thinking about outside the room. You put aside thinking about the office, your family, everything else. You got during the coffee break, during the lunchtime, you can do other things. But when we are in the room, mentally you are in the room, so that you are in the moment. That is being present, right? The other part of being mentally in the room is not to raise a head. Don't anticipate me. Just stay with me. We'll talk about other things tomorrow. But when we're talking about what we are talking about now, stay with me. The third element of being present is suggested by a guy called Peter Senge. Peter Senge is the father of learning organization. He is like the expert about learning organization. He says that if we build the right culture for learning, the company continues to learn even if you're not around. That the culture of learning just inspire everybody to learn. So in his book called Presence, Peter Senge said that you're not only do you need to be physically in the room and mentally in the room, but you must have an attitude for learning. The moment I say something and you think you know, you are no longer present. You get distracted, right? So he said you must be physically in the room, mentally in the room, have an attitude for learning. Means you will need to relearn and unlearn and learn again, even a subject that you think you are an expert in, right? So to be fully present is very hard. I've been trying to do it for 20 years. When I go home, sometimes when I talk to my wife, I can't help it, I suddenly think of something that I want to text somebody, I want to reach out for my phone now, I don't do that anymore. When I'm talking to my son or my daughter, and I say, oh, I love you, how great we are, and then suddenly somebody texts me, and I say, oh, wait, I answer my text machine. Then I go there, oh, I love you. The child know that I'm not present, right? And how can you live the value of love if you do not know how to show it? So to be present means at dinner time, you don't put your handphone on the table saying that there are other important messages coming in. You're present with the people, right? To be present means that first thing in the morning, you wake up, you don't look at your phone, you look at the person sleeping beside you, right? So that is being present. And it's one of the hardest things to do. And I learned it. See, when we start building ourselves and being aware of the person we can be, that is the starting of transformation. We can only lead other people, as I say, if we can lead ourselves. And if we cannot have discipline, we cannot lead people. Discipline is very, very important. Some of the smartest people with the best of intentions do not succeed in life because they don't have discipline. They are always giving excuses, right, about something and some other thing. So I want you to practice present, not only today, but all the time. To be present is a very powerful thing. You just being present, your sales will go up 30%. Imagine you're present in front of your customer. When your customer talks to you, you're looking at his eyes or her eyes, you're 100% in the room, right? When you deal with your family members, when you go home, you deal with your wife or your husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, you're 100% present all the time. What kind of leader you will become, When people talk to you, even if you disagree, very often when a person disagrees with what you have to say, they start looking away, their body language, they start leaning back. When you're present, you don't do all those. It's very powerful. I had a mentor for 44 years now. His name is Brother John D. Cruz. He was my teacher, he's 76 years old now. And he's my amazing mentor. I used to see him 3 times a year. Now I try to see him because he's old. I try to see him more often. I try to see him a month and a half, 2 months. And Brother John is an amazing guy. He's a very simple guy. He's a brother in the school, in the La Salle school. He'll walk in slippers, wear a short, a t-shirt. But he's amazing. When you meet Brother John, he has the ability to make you feel like you're the most important person in the universe. If he make an appointment with you at 9 o'clock, he never blow off a meeting. You will see him at 9 o'clock. And when you see him at 9 o'clock, he doesn't have the handphone, he doesn't look at the clock, look at the river, he look at you. For the 1 hour he's with you, you will feel like you're so important, that he has the ability to make you feel important. He's so present. He listens to everything. He remembers everything I told him the last meeting. He remembers things from 30 years ago that I talked to him because he was always paying attention. He asked me about my children by name. He deals with thousands of people because he's very popular, but he's so present. So I wanted to copy him, and try. Wow, so difficult. My mind go off, I pull it back. I think of something, I pull it back. I stop myself. Each time I think of something else when I'm with a group of person, I consciously break it and bring it back to the moment. Now, if you master this, the culture is starting to form, in the organization. No technology distraction. We try not to use so much technology. There's a magic in writing things down, right? So if you are very used to taking notes using technology, it's okay. But put it on airplane mode. Because I learned in rooms like this, everybody say I use technology for taking notes. But if I walk around, they cannot resist the temptation of one WhatsApp message coming in, an email coming in. So have a culture whereby when you are meeting a customer, when you're having your divisional meeting, whether it's for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour, don't use technology, right? Be present. Show the people that one of our culture is trust and respect. How do you respect people? To be present, right? One conversation means we want everybody to speak but one at a time, right? So if somebody is speaking, we do not expect a side conversation. So every meeting there's always alignment. We are all talking at the same time, one at a time. Trust and respect is our ability to respect each other's opinion and not to throw judgment. Listening to each other, right? I was in Jakarta yesterday for a program with EO Jakarta, a program called Accelerator, where we implement scaling up for first stage entrepreneurs. And during the meeting, we have some speakers, EO members. I forgot his name now. He's a new EO member that come and share some story. And one of the things that he talked about, which I find very interesting, was that very often when we have a dialogue and we disagree with ideas, we make it personal. Like if you say something to me, I disagree. I say something and you disagree, we become arguing. Whereas when we write down what we want to discuss and we disagree, we look at the whiteboard. We are disagreeing on the subject matter, not between the two of us, right? So trust and respect can also mean that when we discuss a topic, any topic, and we disagree on what is the best way to do it, it's not personal. It's about the topic, it's not about the person, right? So if you are able to differentiate between the topic, say for example, you and I disagree on the technology. You have a certain idea about what to use, what technology platform. I have a different idea. It's not personal. When as professional, if we disagree on what technology to use, how to do it, you think we should develop a software. She think that we should buy a package. We discuss on the merits of the solution, not personal, right? So that is trust and respect in action versus verbally, right? Trust the process. Everything that I share with you is not, I didn't invent scaling up. Many things that I share with you would not just come from me. I learn it from other people, right? I am the catalyst, I am the conduit. So trust the process. Nothing I do today, tomorrow is by default. Everything that I do is by design. When I speak, when you speak, it's all by design. I don't do things accidentally. I'm a very calculated person, very intentional. So trust the process. We have been an organization for 32 years, EO. We spend millions of dollars on training. Not academic training, but training for company to scale up, right? So we are the world's most influential community of entrepreneurs. We bring in some real heavyweight resources for our training. We collaborate with Harvard, we collaborate with Stanford, we collaborate with London Business School. I'm just looking up a joint master program with Ross Business School in Michigan for EO members. And when I talk to the university, I say, look, you have a lot of academic information and we have a lot of commercial street information. We know what works on paper and what works in the field, so the collaboration is important. So trust the process, right? Everything that I share with you is all proven. The last one is most important. Take personal responsibility. You are responsible for your own success. don't blame anybody else. You have the power to decide on everything. Do not blame your colleague that you work with, don't blame your manager, don't blame the airline, don't blame everything, don't blame the weather, the economy. You have the power to make all decisions. If you are not successful yet, don't blame people. If you really want to be successful, you take responsibility. You are responsible for your own success. If you want to get the maximum out of today or tomorrow, it's up to you. You can choose to engage me and get the maximum out of it, or you can choose to reject me. That is your decision as well. I'm okay. Tomorrow night I go home. But if you really want to get the maximum out of this, I am willing to spend all my time with you and share as open as I can. It's up to you. You take personal responsibility for your own success. So don't blame anybody if things doesn't work out. Don't blame anybody. The only person you can blame is my past prime minister in my country. That one you blame. Other than him, don't blame anybody. We take responsibility. Right? Are we okay with the ground rules? Yeah. So in your own division, set up a set of ground rules for yourself that incorporate the core values of the company. Right? So whatever we agree tomorrow, make sure that the core values are alive. Like in your own family, if your core value, in your family have core values. So if you think that being kind is an important core value in your family, then you must model it. So when you are out with your child, you have to show kindness. But if you tell your child that you must be kind, and you go to the pasar malam or you go to the site and you're so unkind to the lady that sells you something for $1 and you're rude to the person, your child will look at you and you're not modeling what you say to be kind. If you say that you must be polite and you scream and shout at other people in front of your child, that doesn't work. You're misaligned, right? So the core values is alive in our ground rules. Very, very important. And that's the reason why many of us cannot establish. One of the hardest thing to do in company is culture. Now, if we don't get all this foundation right, how much effort we use for scaling up, we will fail. Because the platform is wrong, right? So before we talk about scaling up tomorrow, before we talk about all the amazing things that we will do next year, the foundation must be correct. If the platform is not correct, we cannot hold what we want to do. We cannot scale, right? If we have no teamwork, how are we going to scale? If we are not aligned, how are we going to scale? If there are so much conflicts within the organization, how are we going to scale? So we have to get rid of all these rocks on our backpack, and then we can scale. Are we okay? Okay. So let's go through a quick round of introduction, right? So if I can just ask you to help me a little bit, go around the room. Just tell me a bit about your name. Tell me, share with me your name, your role in DNET or the affiliated companies in the room. A little bit about your family or personal. Okay? And share something about yourself that not many people know about you, that your colleague doesn't know about you. Now, the reason is this: we learn over the years that when you share, we become closer. Only when we become closer, where we build trust. Only when there's trust, there's truth, right? So if there is no sharing, that we don't get close. When we are not close, we do not trust. And when we are not trusting each other, we do not speak the truth. We just say what is politically correct. We want to say what is correct for the moment. Like many families, when they come together and they don't have trust, they all just dance around, say all the nice things, and nobody cares, right? So that's the reason why we always share in organization. So I'm going to start with Hendra. Are you able, or you take a minute and think about that first? Sorry to put you on the spot. Are you okay? Or you can sit down, stand up, whatever you want to.
My name is Hendra.
Talk to everybody. Okay?
Yeah, my name is Hendra, or my full name is Mahendra Birulika. I am in DNET in the sales division.
Sales.
Sales, yes. I have a wife and 2 children, a boy and a daughter. And number 4, I still thinking about number 4.
Okay, we come back to you. Come up.
Okay, hi. My name is Amitas Kemal, and I'm the product manager of the Dinas Surabaya. And then I'm married. I have one wife, and and then my hobbies between learning and do something kind of that organization. Maybe I like playing a game a lot. Like a lot.
Playing games.
Playing games, yeah. Desktop games. Like,
Oh.
yeah.
Computer game.
Yeah, nobody knows. I like playing games.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My name is Andy. I'm a system engineer in Vietnam. I've been like 9 years in the IT industry. I'm the second child in my family. And say something. I like to travel. I like to
Guy travel. Yeah. Are you married?
No, I'm still single.
Thank you. Bagus.
My name is Bagus Dharma. Bagus. I'm role engineer and operation manager. I'm 15 years in Vietnam. I'm married and will share something that people know about you. I still think. I still think.
Okay. So come back to Hendra and Bagus.
Yes.
My name is Sukhan. I'm a system engineer in Vietnam. I've been 2 years in Vietnam. Now, I am married and I have 3 children. They are all girls. And something you didn't know maybe about me is when the first time you meet me, you think that I am shy. I'm a little bit shy, but after you know, you don't think about
So tonight you won't be shy anymore.
Yeah, I'm not shy.
Okay, thank you. Angga.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Angga Cakratama. In Vietnam, my job is in project division staff. I'm married and children is still in process.
Oh, in progress.
Something about me, I'm a silent person. I only talk when I need to talk.
Good. Thank you.
Morning. My name is Irfan. In Vietnam, I work as a network engineer for around 8 years. I have one wife and 2 daughters. The whom is still below 5 years.
Okay.
Something that I think some people know that I'm a family man.
So nice, yeah?
Yes.
The one that we don't know. Still saying.
Still think about that.
Okay, one conversation, we agree on ground rules. Okay, continue.
My name is Andrew. I'm a part-time CTO of Vietnam. I have one wife, 1 daughter, and some people that don't know.
Passing to the others,
Okay.
called by, I don't know the name, but the person in basketball and the center man to pass the ball.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Firly. I'm customer relationship management. I'm joined with Dinet 2 years, and I'm still single. And so something that many people know about that. I'm like traveling with my owner like a dangdut. So next I will go sing with.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning. My name is Han. I'm calling in number 1 of me. In customer relationship management, been 2 years in my current position. I'm married with 2 kids, girls and boys. And and share something not many people know about you. I like baking. I like to try new recipe. Sometimes it works and sometimes it fails, but it's okay for me.
Very nice. Good. Thank you.
My name is Peter. I work for Investos, which is another one of Caroline's companies. I'm married. I have one wife, no children. Something you don't know about. I like Indonesian food, so those people that like cooking, I like it.
Very nice. Indra?
Oh, yes. Maybe that's something about me. I'm addicted to sensitivity.
Yeah, what?
Sensitivity.
Ah, okay. And somebody else who didn't say.
I'm crazy person. If I want something that I won't get.
Very good. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. My wife likes baking as well, so she can learn from you a bit. Now, some of you say that you are quiet or a shy person or an introvert. Many years ago, when my eldest son was born, he's very quiet. And I made the wrong assumption when I was a young father that he needs to talk a lot, right? Because I come from a more engaging environment. I'm in business, therefore I contact with a lot of people. And I put him through unnecessary pressure because I want him not to be shy, to talk in public and things like that. And then along the way, there was a book called Quiet, written by a lady called Susan Cain. And in the book it says that the best CEO are the introvert. She didn't use the word introvert, she used the word quiet. He said that while other extroverts are so busy talking, the quiet person is observing, reflecting. And she said in her book that usually the quiet CEO are the one that makes the best CEO. And went on to talk about that being quiet is not an introvert. He says that our natural fallback position, after everything that we spoke and deal with, where we relax is in a quiet environment. That is a quiet person. So she differentiates between a quiet person and a shy person. Many introverts are not shy. It's just that they just like to do things on their own outside the meeting. They want to retreat back to a quiet location. So after I learned about that, I treated my son differently. He said there are 10 things that you want to do with a quiet person. And I started to practice it so that I can engage my son correctly, My son sings in a band, he's a head prefect, he's an MC, he does crazy things. But in the evening, when all is done, he just like to be alone, to think and so forth. But my youngest son is the totally opposite. I don't think he can stay alone. He needs to talk to people all the time, So different personality are different. So I think being quiet and introvert is not a weakness, it's a strength. So I think we misunderstand and associate wrongly that the extrovert is the one who is doing a lot of things. Actually, it's the introvert, the quiet person that's observing and observing. I learned that after many years. Let me also introduce myself a little bit. This is the town that I come from in Malaysia. I don't come from Kuala Lumpur. I'm about 200 kilometers north of Kuala Lumpur in a small town called Taiping. Taiping is a small village, and by the mountain, we have one of the most beautiful lake gardens in Malaysia. It's the oldest town. When the early settlers came to Malaysia from China, they settled in Taiping. So it's a small town, and people live in Taiping, they grow up in Taiping, they get married in Taiping, and they go on. So the cycle continues. My parents are very, I come from a very humble background. My father worked for my uncle in a mechanic shop. And because of the Second World War, the Japanese occupation in Malaysia, my parents never had a formal education. They had to stop school, probably in primary school. But my mother is very clever. She's a very smart lady, very ambitious, but she never had a formal education. So when I was growing up in Taiping, I'm expected to stay in Taiping. This is my school, probably the best school in Malaysia. Right? This is St. George's institution. It's a Lassallean school, a French Lassallean school. So when I was growing up, not knowing what I do not have, I do not miss it. But I am very, very close with my mother. And every time before I go to school in the afternoon, in the morning, I will go around to the market with my mother. And my mother taught me everything. She'll teach me how to choose the fish, how to buy the vegetables, and I observe her how she bargain with the shop owner. She'll choose the soya sauce. So I keep on learning from her unconsciously, right? And as we walk through the market, my mother will point out to me all the people selling fish, you know, all the different fish, and I have to choose all the right fish. Then my mother would say something like, you know, look, my son, all the fish sellers, look at the man up there. He is the one who owns all these fish stalls, you know. If you ever sell fish, don't sell it just here, be one of the men up there. See, what I didn't realize as I was growing up as a 10-year-old, 11 years old was that my mother was preparing me to live a higher level and not to just stay in my little village. And as this go on, and my mother always talked to me about scholars in China, things that she read, and she'll say to me that, you know, it's even okay for you to be a beggar, but if you are a beggar, you must be the leader among the beggars and lead the beggars to get more money. So she always inspired me that way. And I never had any bigger dreams because, you know, coming from a small town, you expect us to live in the small town. So when I finished my Form 5, my Form 5 O-levels, I assumed that I'll find a job in Taiping and just continue, marry somebody in Taiping, and the cycle continued. But my mom came up to me and said, would you like to go to the UK? Now, I never knew that all this time she'd been saving all the little money she had, enough to send me to the UK and give me a one-way ticket. So when I finished my Form 5, she said, do you want to go to UK for your A-levels? I said, yes, you know. And those days, it's very cheap to go to UK. So I got a one-way ticket to UK. And I never came home for the first 3 years because we don't have money to come back. And I went there, I worked myself, you know, I take weekend jobs, summertime I just work 2-3 jobs, just go through my university. And every year, now you have to imagine for the younger people in the room, there's no handphone, there's no internet, right? So the only way to communicate is to write letter. And that was the first time I realized my mother can write in English. She took her 3 months in the dictionary to write me a letter. And every year, you can go to the public phone in Leicester Square in London and put in this credit card, this phone card, and the phone will go very fast. And there's a long queue of all these Asians waiting to call home. And when you call home, it's very expensive. And they will pass the phone, so I'll talk to my mom for 10 seconds, pass to my father, pass to my uncle, my auntie, you know, all the relatives, and then the phone stopped. And I wait for next year to call them again. So that's what it was like for me, right? And I came home only after the 3rd year. Then I decided to stay on in London and work as an accountant. Now, then I came home after 7 years in London. And I came home because I felt that with my degree and having the education, I can be more successful in Asia. At that time, I was thinking that, you know, I want to be in the home ground where I can be very successful. So I came home and I worked for a computer company. At that time, we sell mainframes, no ISP, no internet. So I sell a computer called Prime Computer, super mini computers. Each machine costs $1 million US, $2 million US. So I sell mainframe, and the hard disk, 80 megabytes is the size of that table, right? Some of you may remember a little bit of that. I would carry 80 megabytes like that, you know. And we used to laugh because our computer is 128 KB memory, mainframe, or 256 KB memory. And we laughed that one day, maybe a computer will have 1 megabyte memory, you know. Like never, you know, one day, and obviously the one day came. Then I decided to start my own business. And when you don't have much money, I worked for about 4 years in Malaysia. I saved about 11,000 US dollars to start my first company. And I started with 900 square feet. I don't have money, so I decided to go very, very cheap, right? So I wanted to renovate my office, and somebody quoted me almost 7,000-8,000 US. But at the same time, there was a recession. So somebody else quoted me $2,000 to do it because that guy also went bankrupt. And I renovated my office very cheap. I furnished my whole office with tables and chairs from a junkyard. Some of them cost $10, some cost $5, so that my office looked very busy. I actually have only one staff, but I put a lot of files on all the tables so that when my customer come, they think that there's a lot of people in my office. Right? So there's actually nobody in my office. So I started my first company, but when you don't have money to advertise, you use publicity. So I work with the newspaper, and in a pioneering industry, publicity is very important. Whatever you advertise seems not to be true, but anything the newspaper write appears to be the truth because it's a pioneering industry. So I'm in the newspaper every month, and I start selling Malaysian Dream, right? I start telling people what the world looks like, and very soon I started to grow my business. Then I decided to start my own company. First year my sales was only 83,000 ringgit, which is what, 15,000 US dollars. And because my office is so tough, I don't have a photocopier machine, I don't have a fax machine. Every morning when I come to work, I have to cross the street to pay 20 cents to either receive a fax or send a fax, right? Because I don't have a machine. I borrowed my first computer from my friend who studied with me in the UK, a 286 Intel. I never returned him the computer actually, and I buy an Olivetter typewriter. So when we do our first sales, I asked, by that time I have 3 staff already, I said, what do we want to do with the profit? We can either buy a conference table because we don't have a conference table, or I can buy a photocopier machine, or we buy an aircon. Because after 5 o'clock, central building, there's no aircon. Everybody said buy aircon, so that's how it started. And I grew the business a bit, and in the end, I become bigger and bigger. Second year I do 1.1 million, then it becomes 6 million, 15 million, 27 million, and it grew. And I decided at a certain point to sell my company. The reason is right or wrong, because I don't have anything. And I wanted to have a minimum standard for my family, for my children. That time I got married. And I can grow organically and become a huge company and IPO myself. Or I can just sell it off to a public listed company. I choose to sell it off so that, in my case, relevant to me at that time was I want a minimum standard for my family. I want to protect them so that I can start again. So I make a decision to sell my company to a huge public group that is very big. They employ 50,000 people. And the guy who bought my company is a supernova entrepreneur, one of those very successful corporate men that have 2 public companies in Fiji, in like 15 countries. And he didn't really interested in my small company. I think he wants to buy me to work with him. So he acquired me and I become his personal right-hand man for 4 years. So we go around the world buying banks and buying coconut plantation and all kind of stuff, right? So I learned different things. I continue to be responsible for the IT division. By that time, I have about 1,100 employees. And one of my biggest success was that I won a huge e-commerce project, about 110 Singapore million, to do e-procurement for the government of Malaysia. At that time in 1997, internet just started and e-commerce was the buzzword. And I started spending about half my time in Silicon Valley, the US, because when there is a paradigm shift happening in the technology industry, you have to be there. So I spent a lot. I remember when I was in the US, there was so much confusion because internet started, or the defining moment of internet was when Netscape got IPO. Netscape got IPO in June. I was supposed to go and meet all the founders of Netscape. When they got listed at $50 a share, within 3 months the share went to $250. That's when the start of the dot-com bubble. And all of them gone crazy, they canceled my meeting. And so when I was in US, I spent time with MasterCard. They become my partner for Asia. I spent time with Wells Fargo's bank. They were the thought leader for internet banking. There's no payment gateway. So we wanted to build a payment gateway for Asia. So I teamed up with Verifone and AT&T to build a payment gateway. I invested $1 million just to build a payment gateway that even before I finished my payment gateway, all the payment gateway in the world started already. it's not about change, it's the velocity of change happening around the world at that time. So in our business, it's never about change. We assume that everybody embrace change. But what we don't recognize is the speed of change. Change is given, it's the speed of change that is scary, you know. So I went on, and my biggest success was that instead of doing the contract, I decided to work with NTT Data of Japan, they are the Docomo group, to decide to build a platform for the government of Malaysia. So I went back to the government of Malaysia and said that I will pay the $111 million, but you allowed me 8 years of concession for all procurement of the government of Malaysia. So everything that they buy had to go through my platform. Everything that the Malaysian government procure, other than petrol and defense equipment, must go through me. And then I charge them 0.8% transaction fee. Now, because it's so new, when you are a pioneer, you define the rules of your industry, right? The government doesn't have a clue how to pay me. So I told them that credit card is charging 1.8%. I do about half, 0.8%. I have no idea what is the right rate. Of course, nobody will pay you 0.8%, so high now. But I put a cap to every transaction at 10,800 ringgit now. And I bring online 31,000 suppliers into the system. I built the whole tendering system, procurement, and I become an operator, right? And of course, at the same time, to do a deal like this in Malaysia, Malaysia is a very it's on video. Malaysia is not a corrupt country. So I brought in some partners that are politicians, and when you bring in people that are not subscribing to the same value system, culture, things doesn't work on so well, you know. So I left that industry, and I decided to do something else. Now, I'm sharing with you all this because, see, I come from a small town, and I don't have the best, you know, I'm not a genius. I'm a fairly average person. I had the chance to go to school, I had the chance to do many, like everyone in this room, I'm a very regular person. But at a certain point, I realized that I can live to a higher version of myself. At a certain point, somebody said something to me, in my case it was my mom, that inspired me to greatness. That greatness is not something that we are born with. Greatness is something that we create for ourselves, right? So I wanted to share that, it's not to show off, but to share with you that we can be who we want to be. It is our choice. We can live a life of choice, or we live a life of voices that people keep telling us what to do, or we can choose to do what we want to do, right? And that's what I did. You know, I have no business to be here in Surabaya. I'm a kid from a small town called Taiping. And yet today, I travel around the world running programs for some of the best entrepreneurs and billionaires in EO, and sharing with them my journey, sharing with them what they can do with their company. Why? Because I make that decision for myself, right? So where am I today? I started as an IT entrepreneur. I coined the word technopreneur in Malaysia, and I've done a lot of that. But 3 years ago, at this stage of my life, I decided to do something else. I've done IT for 20 over years. We have listed company, we've done all kind of collaboration. I went into partnership with Accenture to build banking software. I represented Acer, I represented Sun Microsystem. We have done a lot of crazy stuff. But at this stage, 2 years ago, I decided that's not what I want to do for my next 10 years. My personal BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal, have changed. At this stage of my life, I wanted to do this. This is my calling. This is my vocation. I just love to go traveling and meet amazing people all over the world. So I discovered that that's my passion now, right now. So I decided to be a trainer facilitator. I only work with EO members company and YPO companies because it's a lifestyle. This is a business that cannot scale. I do not want to operate anymore. I don't want to employ 20 trainers and train them. That's not what I want to do. At this stage, I just want to travel and then go to all the amazing places in the world. So my vocation is this, and the second thing is my family. Like all of you, I have one wife as well. I have this a bit bad. So I have one wife, one daughter, and 2 sons. Now, of the many things I've done, the most successful thing I've done in my life, I think, was that I built amazing relationship with my children. One of the habits that I started many years ago was I do a father and child holiday one-on-one every year with my different kids. So when my son, when Gavin was 12 years old, I decided to go on a one-to-one holiday with him, just 2 of us. We have our family holiday, but I do a one-to-one with him. This is the most successful thing I've done in my life. So when he was 12 years old, I took him into the jungle. And I spent 5 days with him in the jungle, just 2 of us and a guide. And in the jungle of Malaysia, the rainforest, at night we sleep in a tent. And when my son was 12 years old, every night he wants to come so close to me. He asked me everything, Papa this, Papa that. And I was the center of his universe, right? And in the morning, when we wake up, the hornbills will fly across the tent. Then when 2 of us go to the waterfall and swim, an eagle landed 30 feet from us. And my son was so fascinated with eagles. That became his passion. He loved bird of prey. And he loved the wilderness, he loved the jungle. And he decided that he wants to be a veterinary doctor. So obviously, in June this year, he became a veterinary doctor in Edinburgh. Now he's working in the UK. Now last year when he came home to Malaysia, I went back with him to the same jungle. Except now we use the same tent, but he doesn't want to sleep so near to me. He's a 25-year-old kid, so he go to the other end. And when we are moving around the jungle, each time there's a slightest signal, he'll be chatting with some silly girl from Scotland, you know. So I'm no longer the center of his universe. Some other woman is the center of his universe. But the idea is amazing, right? And since then, I've gone with my Gavin all over the world. I took him to Dubai to learn falconry. This is a photograph of us in Machu Picchu. We decided to do an 8 days trek around the Andes mountain. I've taken him everywhere, you know, 2 of us. He's my soulmate. We can sit alone in the jungle. He's very quiet. He's a quiet boy. He's an introvert. And we can sit in the jungle and not talk to each other, but yet we are communicating all the time, right? So he's very close to me. Although he's an introvert, he just tons of things to be sorted out in the office. So from the beginning, when I got married with my wife, I said that I want to have an integrated life, right? And that is important as we start building up, how can we make DNET successful? We do not want to be stretched like crazy, but the moment we have clarity, we talk about clarity, the moment we have clarity how we choose to live, what the company needs, we can design a very good life and yet get the business success that we want, right? And then obviously I love traveling as well. I had a chance to go sailing in Oman with EO members. These are all EO activities. I went for wedding in Lahore, Pakistan, visit the most sacred golden temple with the Sikh. I went to Japan 2 years ago with my 2 sons for an EO event. And I saw Mount Fuji from a distance, very beautiful, the Mount Fuji, very small. So I said, hey, I want to climb. Now I'm not a very fit person, not trained. So I just went to buy a jacket and I just go trekking up Mount Fuji. When I arrived at Mount Fuji, I realized it's a big mountain. It's not so small. From a distance, it looked very cute and small. But you go there, it's 4,300 meters tall. So I climbed and summit on top of Mount Fuji. I almost died, you know. It was very tough. I had to walk down. I climbed, we went to Mount Everest base camp. It takes you about 6 days to get to the base camp, or 6 minutes by helicopter. So I took the helicopter option. Now, this is one of the EO event in Jakarta, Fashion Week. So we went to do a fashion program. We led lanterns in Thailand. I started a chapter in Nigeria. We do a social impact project in Philippines whereby the hurricane came, destroyed some school. So we built the schools there. The sniper. This is a very special, this is a Japanese girl. Did a lot of social impact work in Africa and South America. And she helped a village, took their shea butter from the trees, make a cosmetic, become very successful. And then she got cancer, stage 4 cancer. And I decided to shoot a video about her and her forum, come and present at the EO Global event. So I met her last year and she's well enough. She's still having chemo treatment, but she came for an EO event, Sumio. I started a program in Mexico, you know, amazing in Nepal, subjected in Mongolia, safari. I've done a lot. Now, I'm sharing all this with you because I feel that it's about personal leadership. As I said, I come from a very humble, simple family background in Taiping. And along the way, somebody said something to me that inspired me to greatness. I'm given a chance, just like all of us are given a chance. And I think the turning point for me was I take responsibility for my own success. I don't blame other people for my lack of success. That if it has to be, it's up to me. So I seize the opportunity. I travel around the world, I do things, and I slowly built resilience for myself. I got rid of all my negative thoughts, things that I thought I could not do, I've confronted it. Today I do a lot of training, not in Asia anymore. I do most of my training in North America, in Europe, in Australia. The reason is that I had self-limiting belief up to maybe 4 or 5 years ago that English may not be my first language. It's difficult to go in front of the Americans and try to teach them things, right? But somehow it works, you know. Somehow I just put aside those self-limiting belief. And we can do that, you know. So this morning what I try to suggest is that we want to be successful, but you must have the ambition to be successful. Life is about making choices. You choose to be successful. You don't just exist and bounce around every day hoping for something to drop on you. You do not go through life by default. You choose the life that you want. So the starting point about personal leadership is that you have accountability to lead yourself. If you don't have the discipline, you will never be very successful, right? Because you are always blaming somebody. Get rid of the culture of blame. If it doesn't work, you fix it, you know. Don't go into the office and start blaming somebody else and start arguing about something else. Life is not like that. Life is too short. So we want to work for an organization. Taking on personal responsibility means that you want it to work. You're not here to argue with each other and waste time, right? If the company has a vision and we buy into the vision, then you have to figure out your role in that vision and align that with your own personal vision, right? So the idea is this. First, you have to lead yourself. You have to figure out how to lead yourself, right? Leading yourself is the starting point. So if you can lead yourself, people will follow you. Then you can lead others. Lead yourself before you lead others. Then we start leading others, and then we lead organization. Right? So, leading yourself means that you want to live a life by design. You design your life. Don't live a life by default. Don't just exist. It's a waste of a life, right? So you have to be very clear where you are today, where you want to be 2 years from now, where you want to be 5 years from now, and where do you want 10 years from now. Then this company culture is very empowering. We are empowered, which means that we say to each other and say, okay, can DNET be the vehicle for us to achieve success for the company? And when the company is successful, we are successful. Most of you work for the company 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. It's a lifetime, you know. And if you work for a company that is so stable and fixed, then there is an opportunity for us to really scale the business and realize your potential and realize your full success through the organization, right? So you have to believe that you can live to a higher version of yourself. Whatever you're doing right now, you can be 30%, 40% more successful by just being clear about what you want. You are underperforming without you realizing it because you start to blame everything, you start to accept things around you. So part of the idea of personal leadership is to look at that and build the capacity that you need, right? And it's a lot of hard work, it's not an easy ride, but it must start with the awareness. The awareness that we can be a better version of ourselves. The awareness that we can live to our best potential. Because life is very short, right? So we're going to take a short break right now, 15 minutes. right? And then when we come back from the break at 10:45, then we can take it further. Are we okay? Okay. Thank you.